I am with the Berkeley Group, and our planning firm is supporting Greensville County in its comprehensive plan update. So I think that you probably got a little overview of that, hopefully in your email from Treva in the invite. But really, this is setting the long-range plan for development in Greensville County over the next 20 years, generally. We're looking at timeframes and actions within 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, so those kinds of things. Have some information here that hopefully you looked over in terms of the overall update process. We do have another public workshop tonight. This is our workshop 2 that we'll be having tonight, so you're welcome to come back tonight and kind of talk. We'll kind of be going over some similar questions, but with a kind of more action focus. We're hoping today's conversation can kind of be an open and intimate conversation about issues that are happening in the county and how you would like to help guide us to make the right decisions for the county, particularly as it in regards to land use and development issues that you're seeing, real estate issues that you're seeing in the county. So that's me again, Kelly Davis, and I'm joined by Aaron Berryhill, is my support today. So if you would want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Mike Grizzard, and I'm a builder, third generation. Grew up here, and have a small building supply center in Emporia as well. So kind of double the interested in development, obviously.
So business owner and developer. Great.
We do we build about 15 homes a year. Obviously, the real estate market is
Good.
last week.
Great. Sir?
Mike, I didn't recognize you in Mansfield.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm really looking at it today with, on time on the skippers.
Okay.
And, moved back here, 3 years ago. I was born and raised here. And, my wife and I have a local catering business, and other than that, I'm retired.
What's the business?
It's a barbecue catering
Okay.
business.
Okay.
And we started when we lived over in Chesterfield. Yeah.
Great. Ma'am?
I'm Orthodox Slippy, and I promise not to give this COVID because I don't have it. I am a rancher, a realtor, a writer, and a wife, a manager of LLC for the farm. I'm a broker in Virginia and North Carolina, and have written the only book on the #1 cause of real estate agent and broker death on the job is homicide. There you have it.
Wonderful.
And more than I went to high school, yeah.
Yes, we did. He's much older than I.
Oh, they're coming.
So, thinking about yourself as a stakeholder in Greensville County, talk to me a little bit about what you or your organization value most about Greensville County. You can also think about this as what your clients look for or are interested in Greensville County.
Primarily right now, what Greensville has going for it is, a vast amount of available land and at a reasonable price. As we've seen the Chesterfield market, the North Carolina markets grow, it's kind of pushed people back to the rural areas. And, when meeting with clients, my #1 selling point to get them to come here is less expensive land, a cleaner way of living, and there is a commute, obviously, to get to some of the nicer things that people are looking for out of life, but, people commute from one side of Petersburg to the other side of Richmond, and it's an equal commute. I actually personally live in Colonial Heights, Virginia, and I commute here daily, because where I know the business and where I know the area, I feel comfortable operating. I think there's a lot of potential.
Great.
I make a suggestion that we lower these when we're speaking.
Sure.
I'm missing some of
Oh,
it.
you can take a
We are
pause.
distance, right?
Okay.
What?
We are distance.
Yeah, you can
Don't
take a
have
pause.
to twist my arm. Thank you. Because I know Mike's intelligent, and I like to hear all of his intelligence, not just a little bit.
And is that what you find that your clients or your home buyers are looking for too?
Yeah, it's a price thing. Primarily, it's more land, so the ability to spread out, not be right up on top of another home. And then, like I said, prices, we're looking at lately, we've done a couple homes in Chesterfield, and they're paying upwards of $60,000 for a lot, where we can find them here in the county for the $20,000.
Yeah, I think you can probably buy 5 to 10 acres in Greensville County, and what you'll pay for one lot in Chesterfield County. And, what surprised me is when one thing we back, friends that we had in Raleigh and in Richmond would come visit, and they would sit, and I read several reports, and they would say, wow, I wish I could live somewhere like this. So I mean, and I remember telling the previous chairman of the board of supervisors that the one thing that I think Greenville County should market is the quality of life and down here, and I'm not sure that they even know how to do that. But I agree with Mike. It's one of the big advantages to being in Greenville County, and then our business, the barbecue business. We had so many clients in Grand Lake Gas in eastern North Carolina. And when we started in Chesterfield, we pretty much became the premier provider in Powhatan, Houston, all those counties in central Virginia. And we thought we could benefit greatly by moving there, and it's worked out good for us.
So when you say quality of life, what does that mean to you?
Well, people that want to be, I live 10 miles out of town, but I still live in Williamson County. And, you gotta want to live there. You just don't go because, you like the house. I mean, it's peaceful, it's quiet. Last night we watched 9 deer in the backyard, with 3 fawns, and my wife got tickled because the little fawns that jumped around like little puppies out in the yard. But we see that every day. And of course, that's not really an advantage to me because now my wife's taking up hunting, fishing. I'm one of Cabela's best customers for her, and I hadn't planned on that. But but it is. It's a quality of life. And some people prefer to live 2-3 miles out of town. But I went to a family farm that's been there 150 years, and happened to be in a farm house. So,
Yeah.
and it's a lot going on in the county that we need to get into right now.
We'll get there.
We need to really, take a bite out of it, or that attractiveness is going to go away.
So how about you, ma'am?
Broadband.
Well,
I mean, that,
thinking about what you value about
believe me, I lost a cash sale because we didn't have broadband. They could get nothing on their phone. They went back to Fayetteville, North Carolina. They loved the property. It was 25 acres. It was everything they wanted, but their phones wouldn't work.
I think we're gonna have a statement in the paper in the near future about where we have a broadband. You're probably familiar with where we're at, working with Mecklenburg. I don't want to take away from this meeting, but just so everybody will know, Mecklenburg is connecting all their substations and all the infrastructure together. They're doing the last segment now, which will be from Pine Log Road substation to Reach Street substation. You see them doing all the work. We actually just submitted an application yesterday for Beef Road, Brink Road, Pine Log Road, getting COVID funds, because that section, they can make hot now. So 6 months from now, when all this is hot, they're already applying for additional funds to do the middle mile and last mile. And they've also reached an agreement with Dominion to be a service provider to Dominion's territory. So in the next year and a half, you can really see exponentially increase in the amount of broadband available where we never thought we would get it, that use grant funds. So we're getting close.
Is there anything?
Because, see, I have to come in, I have an office in Emporia, and I have to come into town for the internet.
Mhm.
And that's 7 miles from my house. Right down Dry Road. But the people on Johnson Run Road, technically they're Brunswick County, but they have an employee address.
You will see a lot more coverage in the next year.
Is there anything that your clients are or that you're finding is attracting your clients to Greensville that hasn't been mentioned already?
We, when I think of the different clientele, they love the area, they love the people. I start off giving them a 3-hour tour of the community and introducing them to people before I even show them a house. So once they get acclimated to the area, then they know more what to ask for and what to look for. But it's getting them to know my employee principle.
So, and then the discussion of broadband kind of leads us to question number 2, which was that as you look ahead to the next 10 to 20 years, this could be 5 years really, what opportunities should Greensville take advantage of that would help your business or organization be more successful? So we did hear broadband. Is there anything else that you could, that you need or that you hear your neighbors or other business owners need?
Roads, and I think Greensville's already been very proactive with that, trying to develop our highway, our state road system. So
Okay.
we still are very good country and rural with our rounded road system. So I think long-term planning, that's something that would be key to attracting. Obviously, most people that choose to live here and have a career, obviously, employment, drawing more employers to the area is important as well. But there is that commuting factor that people want to live rurally, want to live in the country, and a lot of them have a commute. So if you can commute on a road with lines versus a road.
Okay, so it's more about striping existing roads than
nothing
needing to
like-
build more or
Correct.
expand
I think we've
roads.
got great roads.
Probably maintenance of the existing,
Yes.
inventory.
Okay,
I think it's what he's getting at.
That's it.
Of course, we don't own our roads, they're owned and maintained by VDOT.
Correct.
Of course, poor rural counties don't get the money, for maintenance that metropolitan areas get. That's a battle,
yeah,
that we've been fighting for years and continue to fight. I mean, the only way we can do a major project is a revenue share type project, that's 50/50, and roads are cheap. We just look on Grayson County, we don't have big pocketbooks to fund, some of the road projects.
It's not to get political, but North Carolina has a better system of that. Like my wife moved here from
Well, you can
a
take
very rural area in North Carolina, and there's not, they don't have roads like ours in the state of Virginia. We have really poor.
You can tell when you cross the state line, or even on a rural road,
And it is very simple, but it does cost money. It's literally, coming down the sides of the road.
You have-
yeah, and
you have to
if we have
wedge
time,
some of those.
Wedge the shoulders and put some Franklin down.
yeah, if we have time, maybe we'll get our map and kind of look at that a little bit closer.
Sure.
Anything that you'd like to add in terms of question number 2?
I think the question is, what opportunities should county take advantage of? I think the county's going to create their own opportunities. And I think, at least in the meantime, because until, like Lynn was talking about, we've got to get the infrastructure to be appealing to people who either traditionally drive through and say, wow, what a nice little town. I'm not sure we can afford to wait for other opportunities to be brought in from outside. And I don't really know what we got to do to create those opportunities, but that's what people like Nana need to think about.
So when you think about that though, what kind of opportunities would be a priority for you, or what? I mean, the next question is more about biggest challenges. I kind of see those being hand in hand, really. We do. I mean, one of the things that we've heard is taking advantage of like the industrial mega site and getting someone there, as that's a big opportunity that we just gotta make sure that the county can figure out how to leverage and get somebody here.
Yeah, but we gotta get to a point we can market that, and we're not there yet. I mean, I think we're a long ways from trying to market it, because there's so many things I think that need to be fixed, made better. School system, things of that nature, anything economic development related to draw in that type of client. But in the meantime, we still gotta survive.
Right.
And having been gone from employer for 12 years, actually 24 years total, but I came back for a visit family. The county's in the rut, and I think the rut's getting deeper every year. So I think the key is how to get out of the rut. We've got to improve the school system, we've got to improve the school buildings, there's a lot of things we got to get done. One thing that I really don't know the answer to this, don't know who could do this, but Emporia has a really funny culture. Most people that were born and raised here don't want to see anybody else making money. It's just the way it's been, I think. I don't know of a low-down restaurant that's ever been successful in Emporia, Queens County. Now, somebody out of town can come in and open one, and bam, it's the best thing since white bread. I don't know how you change it. It's like buying, shopping local. I think that's a real key in any small town today. How do you get local people to shop local? Why don't people go down to Mike's new place and buy local instead of going to Lowe's? And Lowe's is what, a 20-minute drive, one way. So I don't understand that. And I think it gets back to the jealousy of not wanting to see other people make money. I don't know how to change that. What do you think, Mike?
I mean, there is definitely that piece to any rural community. I feel like there's that you fight the people that don't want the area to grow, because obviously none of us, want the housing development that's in rural Chesterfield, right? We
Right.
don't want that. I mean, look, I think we tend to err on like the Powhatan, the rural counties that have done the 5-acre lots, and, to keep our way of life, because we are a rural community. So I think there's that, and there's definitely always that issue. And we are so small, because when you look at population size around the state, we're probably one of the smallest pockets of population that exists. Growing up here, you have a way of life that you don't, it's a great way to grow up. But when you see the rest of the world, it's hard to keep the talent here. Like, I'm one of the very few from my class that stuck around. And it's probably because of my family and the way I was raised. But there is so much opportunity elsewhere that most of the 40-somethings now aren't here anymore. They're moving away. And it would be nice if we could try to figure out how to entice them into building the community instead of joining another community that's already in place. I think that's a problem with my generation, though. I think parents said, we don't want you to work as hard as we did, and then kids grow up with the mentality that they really don't want to work as hard as their parents did, and they want to have more freedom. And it's easier to plug in somewhere else than it is to get in the trenches and build a community. That's what we really lack here, is that young blood that wants to really build this community. And there is that wedge that's driven between the people that don't want the community and don't want to see people do better. And there is this grip. I mean, it's even in my family, there's this death grip on what you have, and you don't want to release it to somebody else, even though you're not going to, you're not going to be around forever. So there's a poor planning piece on how to pass down the prosperity to this area. Really, when you guys were in school here, gosh, the people and the intelligence that was sent out of Greensville County from my dad's generation, y'all's generation, is unheard of. I mean, it was a great place to grow up. A lot of successful, very intelligent people came out of Greensville County school system. That's no longer the case. I mean, it's really a struggle. Not to say that there's not these outliers out of it, but right now we're ranked.
I'd like to share the gentler side.
Huh?
I'd like to share the gentler
Sure.
side. Lois Allen's been here, supported, good restaurant, local restaurant. Others were doing well over on Halifax Street. It was until COVID. My dad never wanted me to take a day off. I never worked less than he worked. There was no way he said, I'm gonna make it easier. Never in my life since I was 9 years old did I not have a job, and probably 2 or 3 like I do now. The area, we had the Western Auto on Baker Street, and there was Emporia Hardware down the way that 3 Harris brothers owned it. And one day, all 3 of them had to be out. One was in the hospital, one was in sick, and one had to go out on a buying truck. Well, when Dad found out that, he said, I will not make 1 penny off of their loss. So he went by one of the Harris brothers and picked up the key. He went down, opened their business. He says, I don't know where their products are, but their customers know. So I went down there and worked with my dad the whole day because that was the right thing to do. And it's that type of ethics that's missing from so many people that they need to know. And people ask me about the competition in real estate agents. I said, I don't have any. We're all co-workers. I can't list all properties. I can't sell all properties. So I really need to work with them, and they need to work with me. So we're all co-workers in this business. So it's an attitude and it's an ethical issue.
Going back to the idea of attracting or keeping some of that either millennial, Gen X population, I think one of the things we heard during workshop 1 is that there's not a lot of recreation outside of school sports. And I'm kind of curious, are there any other community events, again, kind of thinking pre-COVID, do people come and use this lawn as a park, for instance, to picnic, or is there a desire for anything more like that? Movies on the lawn or anything like that that is happening already or was happening, or is that not really something that in this rural community would be desired?
That is happening.
It is. Okay.
Yeah, in town. And I just saw another banner up for a movie, outside movie. And I didn't catch where it was, but it's right on Main Street at the stoplight at the post office.
So there is some.
There are, yes.
Any insight
That's at
from-
Veterans Memorial Park, right? Are they having the movies at Veterans Memorial Park?
I'm not sure where this one is. They've had it over there at, the sports place. Yeah, they've had them right there at Top End outside.
The city has a park right there in the middle of town, trails, in a pavilion. They have a lot of events,
Okay.
public events, 4th of July, fireworks,
Okay.
festival.
So the city is kind of filling that.
Well, there is, so.
It's for and we also have Manhattan Rubber Arts Council when they have 4 different events during the,
So kind of along those same lines, is there any ideas that you have that would improve quality of life in Greensville, either to make it a better place to work or live, play?
we have 50 volunteer organizations. And when somebody says they're bored, I say, okay. Have you volunteered at the chamber? Are you in the Riparian Women's Club? Are you in the JCs? If they're bored, it is their fault. We do have wonderful organizations that are a part of the community, that we need them and they need help.
How about you? Any ideas on that question?
You know, I agree with what everybody has said. I think we've got to, you know, and I might not be want to do this, but it's get real creative. Because navigating the volume Chesterfield, what draws the younger crowd, the social gatherings. You know, we don't have a big bar line in town. And we probably have more in my farm than we do in your town anyway. But, I can figure it, but,
We'll be out there, we'll be out there.
but I mean, you know, we just gotta be creative. You know, and I think kind of feedback on it too. I think while we're waiting for that one big client to be the first addition to the mega industrial site, is focus a lot of energy on entrepreneurship. You know, we've got a lot of kids coming out of high school don't want to go to college. There are all kinds of work keys to the community college. And, you know, if you're near a manufacturing plant, you can, you know, how to do it right, you can make that happen before you go. But, I know over in Richmond and Raleigh, they have organizations where, previous business leaders, free of charge on their own time, will help coach a young person who wants to have a young person, anybody who wants to get creative and maybe buy, you know, set up a new entrepreneurial kind of business. So they'll coach them through that process, and they'll be there on the long way. And that's something we can probably do in Richmond because of the money. You know, it's like anything else, you gotta start and then build it up. But I think that's one thing we could do, you know, in the meantime. Well, we just kind of figure out what we want to do when we grow up.
Right.
That's one of the things that the Cradle Regional Workforce Investment Board does. They have set up incubator businesses and help train, and there's no charge. And also Longwood Business, they help, and a lot of varieties and no charge. And then you have the Cradle Planning, and they're very instrumental. So we need to reach out to these different free localities and organizations that cover our region.
So kind of that idea of partnerships, there's lots of
Right.
partners that we could be working with and maybe promoting their services.
Yeah.
Anything else to add on that?
Recreation is something we could tap. I mean, the Nottaway River is probably one of the scenic rivers. It's northern border of the county. It's a lot of opportunity there. There's a couple of lands that really work really well for now. So I know that talking with friends that from Kelly Heights that don't even know about it, I'm like, I have no idea what you're missing.
And then when you say taking advantage of that, are you thinking like kayaking,
A lot of people have started
trails?
doing floats on the Rebel Brothers kayak or tubes, on track in a tube. The private's public access, most of the property is privately owned. The only public access you have are double bridges, boat landed, a pump station, and
That's it.
that's it. Unless you know a private land, and then there are land that's private land on Sanders, I can put it anywhere, but it's just not public access to the boat.
That's good comment there.
You know, we got a river runs through town.
And then we got the plan,
And I remember many years ago, we tried to get city council to, you know, just kind of get all the Corps of Engineers and drainage the river over this way, particularly coming through town, move all the logs and weapons and train trusses and stuff. And you would have thought we asked them to build a new municipal building. It was, and I was on city council at the time. So, because I was the youngest one on council, so I had to, the old folks didn't want to do it. But still, but we do, we used to say that if the river was clean, that someone right there by the farmer's market wouldn't want to put up a tavern or a bar or restaurant or something that overlooks the river.
Right.
You know, because right there it's ugly, but you can make it not look.
We're working with the Army Corps right now, jointly with the city, and they're getting ready to do a study to come up with recommendations on things we can do. But it should have been done years and years ago. Before my time, they used to, my mama learned how to water ski up there, and now it's 6 inches of water in cattails of the islands. Even
Yeah.
as a teenager, I could run a boat up the reservoir, and you can't do it there.
Oh, we used to go, we used to go up there, run across the dam with the water was flowing.
Yeah.
At night, just because we could do it, you know, we didn't care what deep it was, and you couldn't even see how, or you'd have to fall.
Yeah.
We'll be at night.
Mother Nature's taking its toll, plus,
But see, that's part of the problem, you really, you know, it's trying to be honest, you know. We're in such a rut, it's like it's business as usual. We're having elections today, we're board of supervisors, we're still in the same rut. 4 years later, same thing, we're still in a rut. It's like they live to really only just get paid their bills. And that's it. And then, you know, everybody says, well, what do you do? Talking about a whole lot. You know, and a good example is, you know, once your kids get out of school, parents feel like, don't raise taxes on me. My kids already have school. So we're going to just tax the people who have kids in school. You know, that's the mentality, not just here. It's
we hear that all the time.
Wow.
Taxes are for kind of doing
That's
this
what
whole.
Don't raise no taxes. All my kids grow.
Yeah.
They do it well.
And this is counterintuitive for the county, but the county and the state's hands are tied. Always, school system will come up every time, every meeting you have for the rest of eternity in Grayson County. And the county, because of funding, their hands are tied. No matter where you stand politically, we've got a problem that the government can't fix here with schools. What you see is these KIPP schools and these thinking outside the box, school systems that come into our localities like ours, and that's how they're fixed. Whether you do it privately or whether the government helps out somehow, but that's the solution. Like we have very engaged parents. We have two types of parents in Grayson County. We have a very engaged parent that loves and cares for their children and sends them to school, does everything they can. And then we have a completely unplugged latchkey kid that, let's face it, they're lucky that they get food on the table. So if we could get the parents engaged by time, I mean, you know, there's no such thing as a free lunch. We could make that latchkey kid parent take some initiative and invest in their job. I mean, I'm a voucher believer for, I don't think it works everywhere. Vouchers are stupid I live next to Tussing Elementary School. It's the best elementary school you can ever imagine. But for here, if a parent had a voucher and it was, again, you're asking the county to cut their own arm off, but it's the only solution because we can't operate in the SOL system where you test these poor kids to death.
We've lost a lot of kids the last 5 years to other public school systems.
Yeah.
Southampton, well, you have the academy in Southampton. We have a large number of students that are there, a large number that go to the academy in Brunswick. And we have right many that go to Southampton public schools.
Schools are just a major problem, and it's a, you know, there's a lot of local people that are very invested in the schools, but we've lost also a ton of good teachers. I mean, excellent teachers. My wife was a teacher for a couple of years, and she moved from Wake County school system. They had 9 elementary schools. We, for some reason, think that we're supposed to cram 1,000 elementary kids in one school. It's absolutely asinine, but that's poor planning on the county's part. I'll say it out loud in public. Like, we went the opposite way we should have gone with that school. We built this mega elementary school, and we're gonna ship everybody to one of them, and it will never work for growth, and it doesn't work for the kids. They have 10 kindergarten classes, 10. Management says 3 to 5, right? Like, you don't that school is so poor functioning on so many different levels. You can bring the kids, but it's from the top to the bottom.
Yeah, a
It
lot
is
of rural
massive
localities
failure.
have done that though, concentrate everything.
I know,
in one
it's about
school.
money, right, but it's not the best thing for the kids. And see, the vouchers would solve that. So I grew up, went to a private school. Yeah, it was, I mean, let's say what it is, it's a white flight school from segregation, right, that's what it was really founded for. But it's also a problem, it's where kids go now, and their parents pay $7,000 a year to send their kid there. And I think we're up to 11,000 per child. So the county's spending 11 grand a kid and failing us miserably, and the two private schools that are in the area are doing it for 7,000 a child. So we got, the money's a part of the solution, but it's not the ultimate solution. The ultimate solution is engaged parents trying to figure out how to make them work, but that's our struggle is we have a really poor school system.
Let's shift a little bit and talk about land use and development, which is really the core, the reason why I think the people in this room are here. And so my first question on this is what type of new development would benefit Greensville County? Is there any particular type of development in terms of commercial that's needed, industrial? Any thoughts on that? Let's start.
To me, Greensville's best option is like the Skippers area and Jared area, right? The city's got the center of the county kind of blocked down, but the Jared and the Skippers area, obviously, are two communities that you would hope could blossom and grow. Jared's right on 95. It's a pretty easy one off.
We just get infrastructure
Yeah.
in Skippers there. That's been a challenge for the county, getting public water to Skippers. We have a well system. Like I just mentioned earlier, we do a startup on the new sewer plant in Skippers today.
They're doing it.
So we will have some areas of Skippers now that you could rezone to residential type districts that don't require weather septic tanks. So there is the potential for commercial and residential growth in Skippers. Matter of fact, we have a new industry, not industry, but commercial business getting ready to go with the interchange. And talking to a second one right now too.
There's real potential there.
That's the first interchange coming out of North Carolina. It's ideal location.
Then going out of Skippers.
Yes.
Do you two agree with those observations?
And I think we need to also add natural gas in with that. We lost Valley Protein because we didn't have natural gas.
And when we think about residential development, either in those two areas or elsewhere, and I brought maps here, there's 3 maps if you want to grab one. What kind of residential development would you be looking for, would your clients be looking for in terms of small lot? I mean, that's getting away from
I
the
think it's a
rural
mix.
character.
I think a mixed use community is what we're looking for. I think they're gonna want those half-acre lots, and then I think you're gonna want to see those 2-acre lots. That's-
And when you say that, do you imagine that in one community, like, around Richmond, you might have a very large residential development that's got townhouses and maybe multifamily and different type sizes of, single family detached? Or is it more important that those uses are all available in Greensville County, whether or not they're planned together in a mixed use environment?
A mixed use could work. I feel like the lure is gonna be that single family home. I think the townhome it's not really a lure for townhomes because you want a townhome, they're already readily available.
Okay.
So I feel like that's
So
single family.
requiring mixed use or suggesting mixed use through the comp plan process might not be necessarily, at least in your opinion, the end all be all.
And home ownership, like, so the other issue is we need homeowners in Greensville County. We do a really poor job of encouraging homeownership.
This is true. Yeah.
We have a lot of rental property, and there's some very well-off people, some of my family included, that benefit off of the rental home. Getting massively wealthy off of rental property. property, but they're putting back assets. It would be nice to me if we could flip that a little bit and maybe, you know, let's, instead of having an asset long-term, let's care more about the community. Maybe make a little money on a home sale up front, but we get a homeowner instead of a tenant. I think that's a big problem that we need to kind of work through.
We have a lot of managers in the industries that live in southern Chesterfield because they can't find anything comparable to what they'd like to live in. So they commute.
And so is that more of the large lot, larger homes, so there is a
Yeah.
need for that as well?
And you're not gonna, the thing about it, if Mike built one, it might be on the market for 3 or 4 years and he can't afford that. That's the thing about it. They get a mentality. I know many years ago when we had the chamber luncheons at the Holiday Inn, that tells y'all how long ago that was. I was sitting next to the manager of Walmart that had pretty well just opened. And I asked her, I said, "Are you living here?" She said, "No, Emporia is not my kind of town." I wish I'd had a microphone. She was a guest of the Chamber of Commerce. And it's like, she'd been here 2 weeks and had not given it an opportunity. And she lived in southern Chesterfield and had no intentions of moving. So it's getting that marketing out. That's why I give that 3-hour tour. And it's not Gilligan's Island. We always come back.
You know, I think when you talk about skippers in general, you know, obviously the other that's going to be where the commercial development is. And to me, a lot of that in terms of residential is going to be an offshoot from that. You know, probably kind of control itself. Because the further you get away from it, the pickier landlord is going to be, would they for sale or not sale. You know, so I don't really see that as an issue. I think mixed use would, you know, you're gonna have people who want to rent. And, you know, the thing that, one thing that amazed me, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but back, a year or so ago, you know, there was something in the newspaper about, and I'm not sure about the exact percentage, but something like 78 or 80% of the people who live, I think it said the city of Emporia, rent. You
It's
know,
over 60% now, for sure.
Yeah, that was 60.
that blew my mind. I mean, you know, affordable housing is something we all are going to be trying to promote. You know, we know we've got enough houses we can tear down and then put back. You know, but I think, you know, Mike was talking about it, I think the pretty much take care of itself.
Let's talk about that. So in terms of vacant, dilapidated housing, is that in the count? Okay, we're talking about
Not
county.
everything.
Yeah,
But there are county houses.
We've got plenty of old buildings in the county that should be condemned and torn down, if for no other reason, just to improve the aesthetics.
Okay.
We're gonna watch that.
Yeah,
I think they're waiting for the wind to blow them down. It's cheaper.
Well, and then and I'll come to the county's defense here. We're small, and when you go out condemning buildings and pushing the few property owners that you have left,
right.
upsetting them and getting them, so it's a really tight road that they have to walk with that. I'm sitting here dealing with the building inspector right now who doesn't see any leaks, but he'd like to put another 2 foot of water on top of the pipe. And sometimes everything in me is to say, look, you're lucky I'm building here. Look at the room, right?
Yeah.
Don't come with me with this nitpicky nonsense. And there's that mentality that we have when you hire an inspector to tear down property, and it really ticks people like me off. I mean, it just does.
Right.
You go back to your office and enjoy your check getting, because that's what.
I'm a lot of specters.
He's getting pretty bad. This is not him today, though. This is Sussex County. Yeah, I mean, I expect that out of Chesterfield. Absolutely right. We got the badge wearing 25 of them that come out,
Right.
bark orders. if they stunt growth a little bit, they're in good shape.
Yeah,
But, I mean, and Lynn is wonderful, and most of the county employees are very wonderful. But that is something that needs to be ingrained in every county employee, is that we're here to help. We're here to work together as a team. And sometimes we don't get that, because at the state level, they push a pretty different agenda. And these poor guys go to these trainings and they get this mindset that like developers and builders and the citizens are the enemy, and they're trying to, get one over on them. And it's like, well, dude, you can inspect it today, I can do whatever I want to after you leave, right? Like,
right.
there's a trust issue that we have. And Mike Gellick, he's wonderful. He's always been very, very good too. But that's something that I feel like the county's done a pretty good job at, but that's something that needs to be still ingrained in every county.
How do the development timeframes here, or review process timeframes?
They're good. They're pretty good. I mean, they're stuck with state mandates too, so that the stormwater stuff is horrendous. I mean, we've got a major problem with that, but they've done a good job of, nightmare.
We, DEQ enforces your stormwater and EMS regs in most localities. But
Yeah,
the locality has the option to adopt their own program, and it's a headache.
Yeah.
But
and I don't wanna get into that too much, I just wanted to.
They've done a good job.
But I'll tell you why we did it. The reason we did it is for developers.
To save money.
All right, they used to have to go to DEQ to get a permit, whether it's a road, a house, apartment complex, whatever. Well, you submit plans, DEQ takes 45 days, gives you 3 comments, you resubmit plans, another 45 days. You can do all your shopping here for all your permits.
Okay.
And our turnaround time is better, so we do that to make it easier for anybody coming in here. You don't have to deal with 5 different departments. You come to Grayson County and get your stormwater, EMS, your building permits, all that, one stop, one shop.
That's
everything.
good, we should highlight that.
Yeah, very much so.
Are
You know,
there
my process is easy.
Yeah,
easy to get your business license?
I didn't have no trouble with the commissioner of revenue, not even doing
we can go there.
Are there any other issues that Greensville County faces when it comes to new development that we haven't talked about already? There's schools and that, and limited number of developers interested in developing here. Is there anything else?
Taxes.
Okay, and what, is it the tax rate being too high, or?
It depends on, especially where they come from, like, if they're coming from Tennessee, retirees don't have any taxes on their retirement income. Their, taxes on personal property on their cars is $55 per car, while they own a 2020 vehicle or 1976 vehicle. Each vehicle is $55. That's
Yeah, it's hard
We
when
just
you're
paid out
competing with other
$900.
states.
Yeah, I don't think that's much the county can do about that.
Right.
But that's it.
I mean, but it's substantial to them. And
If
I-
you're looking
But
at,
as far as our rates, as far as localities around us, they do it.
okay,
Yeah,
That's
but-
probably part of the problem, but
Yeah.
part of,
Right.
because I mean, Chesterfield's what, 90?
Yeah, but Brunswick County is lower than we are.
any ideas from you on that?
it. But one thing I would like to mention there is I think the county should try to have it delisted as an opportunity region. Because, that you get that designation because you're looked at as being an economically disadvantaged community. And I don't think that's a selling point for anybody. The only advantage for an opportunity fund lies with an investor who wants the tax break. That's it. That's the only purpose it serves. So if I was an investor, why would I want to come in and spend $50 million on a plant? Economically depressed area is telling me that, I really want to be that. So I think the risk is far greater than the reward in that case. And then I just hate to see us looked at as being economically disadvantaged or type of locality. Because if, the people who don't know any different, they're gonna believe that, and they believe that, they're gonna act like it. And I just don't think we ought to move forward, starting off with that label attached to that. Would you make an investment in the community that?
Well, I do all the time, I don't have a lot of money to invest, but we were going back to the size home, like the $150,000 to $200,000 home is kind of like the sweet spot for this community. That's what everybody needs. Obviously, we've become accustomed to having a lot more than we actually need, but that's the right size.
What size and
About
property
1,500
size?
square feet typically to 2,000 square feet is what most, they found.
Yeah, I think somewhere around that.
And how much land, or does it just?
And I think the land has something to do with that. I think if you can give them a larger lot, whether it's a small community lot or even a country lot, then that helps.
And when you say larger lot, what does that mean here?
Two
acres.
acre usually. And then a larger lot in town, like, so I've been thinking of the Jared and the Skippers area. I think you could go back to those 1/2 to 3/4 acre lots if there's water and sewer available. I think that works really well too.
But I'm working with one gentleman from out of town, and he came to us because we're an opportunity zone. And he's talking about 4 different properties paying cash. But he will live in the area. And so it was because we were an opportunity zone that he even looked at us. It all depends. It's a lot of variables.
Yeah, okay. I haven't heard that particular argument before related to opportunity zones. What I have heard about them is that just generally it wasn't as big of a benefit, or people didn't really understand it to know how to make investments that make sense.
Well, there's so much opportunity, economy's moving, there's so much opportunity, red tape is the one thing that I run from. Like, I don't even bid government work anymore, because there's so much red tape attached to it, I just rather not, right? I don't, it's just not my business model. There's so much opportunity out there that why are you gonna bog yourself down in the
Right.
office when you can go do something else? So I think that's something, if there's a big reward, maybe we get bogged down in it,
Yeah.
but we don't have that big reward here, so why get involved?
Right.
He's in the, he's
Yeah, the board is not
industry.
the county, the board is to the investor.
But there's not enough reward to deal with the red tape,
Right.
The reward being to me as an investor, there's plenty of investment opportunities, right? And why am I gonna get bogged down with a whole lot of paperwork that I really don't have time to mess with?
But I think he's a large developer in industry.
Sure.
So that's why
He's probably got an office that
Yeah.
can handle that.
and I think it's a bigger industry that we're looking
I
at.
think residential development is what I'm kind of.
Yeah, it's a little bit different.
When we think about land use in the county, are there any land uses that concern you or are like things like buffering around car dealerships or an industrial site? Is there anything that you're seeing happening with regard to land use that concerns you for the long term?
I wouldn't-
Industrial scale solar farms.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's a solar farm with that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad we got them, because it's that double-edged sword.
See, what's happening is they put them in the agricultural zones and rural residential zones. And they're now classified as industrial scale. That property will never revert back to agriculture. It will always stay industrial. And you can call it leapfrog zoning if you want, that's part of what it is. But our county has no restrictions that they impose, none, 0. They created guidelines, but did not put them in the zoning ordinance, which means they're useless. So far out in Big Sport District, we have about 3,000 acres already approved, with another 800-900 acres on the table.
yeah, it's exploding right now because of state mandates, really.
Well, no, I don't believe in the state mandate, because the final decision rests before the
It
supervisor
does,
in every single county throughout Virginia.
right.
This is not a state decision to make.
Solar farms are the prison of money.
Yeah, don't get me wrong,
Prison, you know, prison came, promised this, promised.
Yeah.
Nothing came to fruition from the prison.
I'm not opposed to solar development, I'm not opposed to solar
either.
development. In an agricultural zone, and certainly in a rural residential zone,
Yeah,
particularly where the existing neighborhood already exists.
right.
But yet, our county's bigger than that. Yeah, I think, talking about a map, you really want to have a useful map, decide where the industrial zone should be, and make down payment any, industrial scale facility. You know, I'm fine with that.
I think when we're looking at the Dominion Power Plant, it was gonna be an economic boom because people were gonna buy houses and it's like, ain't happening.
See, industrial scale solar development is not economic development.
Yeah,
It creates no jobs.
Right.
It's there for 30 years, it employs no people at all. Somebody come cut the grass, and they will not live.
So are there any areas in the county that, as a group, you would say it's appropriate in this area and not this area? Because I think right now it's outside of a radius, from the hubs, right? It's gotta be a different,
Yeah, I think what Mr. Legan has alluded to, correct me if I'm wrong, we have recommendations in the comp plan that he feels they should probably be in the zoning ordinance, so therefore.
Absolutely.
but I'm
I've
asking,
been reminded that the 2232 comp plan is no more than a guideline, which quite honestly, any day you can borrow it from a trash can.
right,
You're not gonna get to it.
but what I'm asking is putting aside anything current like that, we can address the zoning potentially, but are there any areas that would be appropriate or any areas that you would look on the map and say, this is not like within this vicinity of the city or of
Yeah, I
Skipper?
think you can identify some areas, and those limited areas, that exist in transmission and distribution lines that will dictate where you'll have solar development. So you can very easily look at that map with the distribution lines and see where you have your viable pockets of low density rural residential development.
Well, I
medium
mean,
density.
what you're saying is only true if you go back to the guideline that says you gotta be within a mile of the transmission line.
Right, I know.
Okay, the one on the table is having to build a 2.2 mile transmission line.
Connection.
Big difference.
Yeah.
Big difference.
Yeah.
And then you're also supposed to be greater than a mile and a half from an existing or already approved site to 600 feet.
I have on that my plate that is similar to what you're talking about.
They talk about maps, where we sit, in my opinion, and I visually, I'm just guessing, knowing the industries that are back between here and let's say the overhead bridge, Denver, right there, the country club, would be a great spot. Grab some of that small manufacturing type of place. We got a couple of places where trucks used to exist, they don't exist anymore. To me, that would be places that you could really look at.
So we've got on our current map, we've got industrial is this gray,
Okay?
so we're kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, we're in that,
That's kind of what I'm talking about.
uh-huh, this area you would agree with that.
That's done. Back to
Anywhere
2020.
along the 95 corridor, I think would be a possibility. Plus, it would give people who are traveling an opportunity to say, oh, look, they got a solar farm. They can look at that, that's great.
Unfortunately.
All right, you gotta maintain your distance and put your mask back on.
I think I showed you that map I messed with Idea one, it takes in the metrics and the comp plan, it shows all the hubs, where the power lines are, mile away from the city. Something I just drew up. And,
Yeah, maybe that would be helpful.
The problem is this, the county does not have a county doesn't have a process that puts everybody on the same level. Okay? When a developer comes in and puts an application, it goes through the same process. The only problem is the guidelines are being enforced. Because they're not part of the zoning ordinance.
Okay,
So,
yeah,
so
I
again,
understand what you're saying.
and there's always gonna be a local person who owns the property. So the planning commission is very biased towards,
Right,
solar development. Largely because their friend is standing in front of them, wanting to give it special use permit. And to me, what you gotta do is you gotta level the plan, and make it fair for everybody. If the rules and guidelines in the zoning ordinance to say this, and that applies to big, applies to small, applies to white, everybody. So we don't have any argument. So now what it is this county is more divided right now than I've ever seen in my life over one issue. So.
Stay 6 feet away.
If you look at the green.
do you have any other observations on the map that you'd like to?
I don't see the mega site on here.
Okay,
It's CSX, because this was done years ago, this
Okay.
map. We're gonna do a new map, that's part of this process. CSX, this is when they first came to us talking about it.
Yeah.
So this was, that map's
Okay.
2012.
I bet we had 20 industries to look at it, but because we do not have natural gas.
okay,
Well,
okay,
Toyota.
And I'm saying, if I took all those
okay,
metrics on the top plan and mapped it.
Great site,
okay.
1,500 acres.
So natural gas
So we get
to
natural
the mega,
gas. We want
mega site.
everybody coming back. You tell them that. It's like, my husband's on the industrial development.
You can leave that, you don't have to roll it.
Okay.
Anything related to residential that you see on this map, are these areas that are shown as residential, still pretty consistent with what we're. Residential area with the land.
This is on that little power line that comes up.
There's a lot of things. I think the county,
Right. When you see this area down in Skippers, right now, the red is commercial and then there's no yellow. But the rest is agriculture and they still have small lot sizes for the.
Yeah, so they're not. The water sewer situation in there.
That's another map.
Okay,
And see, this is. Biggest.
Jared being divided.
Yeah. Biggest thing in the bus. Always.
So you're not hoping, there's not any area out here that you would be hoping to see as a higher density? Or
I
even
would love to
along
see,
95?
I would love to see water and sewer referred. But there's a lot, like, there's a lot of people that have to go, oh my God.
Community.
Yeah, we don't want the water to come here.
Right,
So you've got that. It's just that close.
right.
That's old business. That's the one.
Yeah, if you have any more observations
Because this is
about the
going way back
maps.
before we. CSX started.
And then, that's kind of small, but that's the only one.
I would say you don't have that.
Could be something for. Yeah, so that's what there would be, to me, would be a great thing. Have people don't need it, but it's always the stuff that it's. But again, we have a really small area and there's a lot of areas that would like to do play that. But the country club is a really good resource. It's untapped and it's really underused. And there's probably a handful of people that would probably say, don't use it, but.
Airport is a good selling tool.
Airport's very valid as well.
So So one other question that I have, since we brought up rural residential. Now, I believe from our earlier conversations that rural residential lot sizes are lot
Right.
minimums are like 1 acre.
Acre and a half.
Yeah, and is
The
that,
minimum size is an acre and a half.
does that cause any issues or do you see that as causing issues to the county? Are people pretty happy with what they see, even if it's a smallish lot kind of put out in the rural areas? Is that degrading from the rural character at all, or we haven't heard that from the community, but I was curious.
One subdivision.
We, residential subdivisions, we have 3 different size residential lots. It's all based on the infrastructure. These lot sizes were done before I came here, but if you have both public water and sewer, if you look in table 5 of our zoning ordinance, they put up the minimum issue, the minimum area, the minimum road frontage. So if you have 80-foot wide lot is the smallest, you got both public water and sewer. All right, that's R1C. Then we have R1B, where you have one or the other utility. 90-foot lots, larger area. And then we have R1A, and that's where you expect public utilities in the very near future. Key is, even if it's a resident, say you don't have public sewer available, you still allow a septic tank, but you don't have to have that reserved drain field. And when we get to the A1 areas, it's an acre and a half minimum, because it takes at least an acre and a half to get your well,
Right,
your drain field, and your reserved drain area. And it's still favoring an acre and a half, especially if you got somebody next door, you've got to maintain 100 foot from their well. And, so that's,
so
the
that's
reason
kind of,
we have an acre and a half.
and that's kind of the minimum. My question is some localities to kind of preserve that rural character will set a
5 acre
5
lots.
acre lot or a 10 acre
I
lot.
would have no problem going to 2 acres, but that.
And it depends, our county, we have the coastal plain in the Piedmont one county, and I call 301 the divide line. We have 4 soil types east of 95 and 301. And I've seen, we can have to have 3 or 4 acres for a lot to get your reserve area drain fields in. Whereas if you're in the Piedmont section of the county, then you have better soil types, and you don't need as much area for a septic system. But we still have a lot of people who probably have to have an acre and a half. Once I explain to them, and I can show you neighborhoods, years ago, we had acre lots. Jones Mill Road, so you got house after house after house, found a septic system, found wells, and they had no alternative. We cannot get on sewer, without enormous cost, And I mean, we've got alternative systems. We work with the people through grants.
Right,
We got numerous alternative systems we put in, and we don't want to create another situation like that.
Sure,
If you have too
sure.
small a lot area.
yeah,
There are engineered systems out there because of that.
Yeah. We
They
work,
invest
I can't tell you how many
$20,000.
families I work with.
I don't think the county can do anything. They're very, you guys are very encouraging of development. I don't think there's much else. you can do as far as-
I think we've done good with our water and sewer extensions, in serving the public with the infrastructure we can, and still maintain the lowest rates. User rates were a whole lot cheaper than the city, Halifax, Lake Rapids, anybody like us. We,
Their tap fees are very reasonable.
okay. So anything else on this list on number 6 that you were a little bit over time, but we didn't have anybody else waiting out there, so I kind of let us chat a little bit more. But if there's anything else you want to bring up, any other, again, thinking in the next 20 years, what kind of investments should the county be making? I heard natural gas, I got that one written down.
I think for number 6, the last bullet, we've got open and accessible government. We don't have that. Not on the board of supervisors, we don't. You've been to a couple of meetings and see how it works, but, for example, we'll have a public hearing. And the public, the ones involved in the take their own time and effort to come in and speak, you know, it's a great thing. I always think that's a great thing. Problem is, within 2 minutes after the public hearing, the board takes a vote. So that tells us to use Clint Slayton and his infinite wisdom. You know, he says, you've already made a decision back in the room, now you're gonna come back in and tell us what it is after all of us that spend time away from family to come express our opinion, you know, and you know, citizen, a resident is not allowed to stand before the board of supervisors and ask them a question. So what's the point?
Right.
And, you know, I've accused them to that basis of not being transparent.
They are alienating citizens terribly.
Yeah, they say they're accessible, they say they're accessible if you call them outside
Right.
of this room, to talk to you.
Yeah, but
That's, it may or may not.
I'm sure you know from being on the board, that's typically that's how it works, is that during the public hearings, they're not responding to questions, but there are certainly other ways, like town halls, that are really intended for that back and forth discussion.
But see, they had the vote before the public meeting. They'd already voted, didn't matter what was said. Vote was done. And that's
So
not
is there
right.
any like action strategies that you have experienced or heard about in other localities that you would like to see replicated here in Greensville that would improve that?
You know, I
Situation.
just got one, I don't know whether it comes weekly or twice a month, but it's a newsletter from Chesterfield County, where I used to be. And it touches on every topic from education to economic development. It tells you exactly what's going on in Chesterfield County from 1 week to the other. And I still look at it, you know, and I thought, I think I got one yesterday. But, like, you might want to sign up for that if you would only, yeah. And, but it is important, you find out what they're doing, how they're doing it, and things of that nature. So I don't know why they think you're gonna need it.
We did one years ago, but they quit, and I don't know why.
And the county does have this, alert mechanism now that they'll,
Code
is
Yeah,
that what it's called, code red? Where they'll alert you when there's something they want you to know. And that's not exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, no, and that's what, the example of the newsletter, that's good, that's a good example of a strategy that is kind of tangible, because it's really hard to say, you know, tell people to start allowing questions during the public hearing process. That's just not really how the process is set up. But I understand that there's a desire for more open and accessible information and how.
Yeah,
what are
I
some
don't
ways-
know when all that's going back. When I was on city council 16 years, I would have constituents walk in that room and invited me and pointed me and say, Mr. Taylor. And they would ask me and I'd answer,
absolutely,
you know, and that's the way it ought to be.
yeah.
And it's kind of like one of those, you can't stand,
It-
you don't get the kitchen kind of thing, you know. And, her father, he kept me straight more than anybody I can. He sure did.
All right, anything else on that list, or any, you know, burning strategies that you'd like to see?
Well, getting back to the communication, we need information. When you go online to the Greensville County site, there are no minutes from industrial development, there are no minutes from anything. You can't find the minutes. And they need to have those accessible to the public on their site.
They are.
I have looked,
All of them, sorry, I'll
Okay.
and see if maybe others.
because I have looked,
Yeah, but see, typically, they don't publish the minutes until after the following meeting when they're approved, and they'll publish the minutes once they're approved. But yeah, if you go under public information, you'll see agendas and minutes for all your different boards and stuff, so they are online.
because I had looked for the industrial development and,
I'll look, I don't know about it.
okay, Because to me, that's the one I really need to know about.
Anything for you? Final thoughts?
Not really, I've covered a lot.
Yeah, thank you all so much for your time. If you have not taken the comprehensive plan survey online, please, there's a link here to that survey. And please share it on any social media that you have, or, tell your friends about it. Lynn and Treva, I think, have some flyers probably in your office. Treva and
We do,
Treva
it's on our website, if you go to the website, there's a link to the survey, I think y'all do it through Survey Monkey,
It's
so it
through
automatically
Survey
goes
Monkey,
to
but
the
yes,
Berkeley group.
we're really hoping to get some good feedback through that,
If
so.
you have people that don't have access, we've got plenty of copies, they can just drop it off, we'll get it to the Berkeley group. We've sent several mailings out, we're working the school system, get the word out, that's one of the easiest ways, but unfortunately, kids aren't in school.
Yeah,
That's been one problem, because in the past, we send out with every school kid, send a packet, we also do it with our water sewer bill mailings. So we're getting it out. I just wish more people would take the time to complete the survey and submit it. If y'all need stack of copies, you want to give somebody out, hand out to people.
I was looking at.
What you doing online too?
Yeah,
it's all good, online is preferred.
Yeah.
If we get hard copies, we're just entering them into the online system.
We'll try to.
Yeah, that would be great.
well, back in the days, never it's online, I'll show you how to get to it.
Okay, I appreciate it.
All right, well, that's all that we have. I think we kind of covered everything, at least in some way. Really appreciate your time here, and you're welcome to join us back tonight and then follow the process. It's a long process through the board, working with the
What
board.
time, when you say tonight, what time?
Tonight, I believe, is at 6.
From 6 to 8 tonight. The meetings today are stakeholders, they're business leaders, school leaders. Tonight's open to the general public. We've already had one input session a month ago,
Mhm.
and this is another opportunity for citizens to come to answer similar type questions.
Yeah.
And give us their opinions.
And you're welcome to still come and listen and
Well, I'll
participate.
be over in Jarrett, I don't know if y'all know, Leon Benjamin's gonna be over there to meet with you. So y'all are welcome to come to that, that's at 7.
All right, thank you all so much for your time, and really appreciate it. And I think we've got your contact information over there too. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you. Nice to
It must be
meet you.
5:00.
Huh?
It said we were gonna be finished at 5, so I think it's 5.
Oh. No, that's.
But this is really good, because I needed to leave.
Did you really think it was gonna be all day?
Well, looking at the schedule,
So, okay, that must have been, so we are here until 5. We're supposed to be doing different groups.
okay, because,
What are you looking at?
well, I was looking all the way down to 5:00, see, because I do agriculture, I do community services, business, it's like. That's what I was thinking.
Oh, you're welcome to stay and
No, I had to pay
listen.
40 hours.
I don't have that document that you were just looking at.
Ah,
You know what, do you mind, that might have been my copy of the schedule. Can I see that? Do you-
I printed it off
Is-
my computer.
Oh, okay,
It's off of my
okay,
computer.
gotcha, okay, all right.
You do.
Thank you.
That was for my invitation.
Okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Oh, okay. When I tell you. That's only if you do land, you gotta agriculture fields.
No, I have to let everybody else except y'all, and then we have.
Now, the land development requires.
But we're gonna have one, when you show up, we check everybody who's coming to the door. Okay? I will, I gave them.
Clear land, like a lot of
Lynn.
That's what, when you build a house, you still have to do.
Lynn, we're gonna need to get, I didn't realize that there was folks waiting outside, we have to leave time in between before we.
We have to disinfect between each meeting.
We're a little behind. Yeah.
Melissa was informed.
Okay,
Mr. Cypress, you didn't.
no, yes, I didn't realize there was anybody waiting.
Right, it's just one, she just got here.
Okay,
She just got here. I think this is the one. I'll take the mic.
Website, public information.
Thank you.
Information goes to limits.
We'll put these back so we know where people are sitting. Is
Okay,
that okay?
that sounds good.
Forward.
education. And so the community college touches on both of those things. So I am, we're all ears to kind of hear if you just want to talk about some of the issues that you're seeing in the community to start, and then.
Okay, so I'm going to give you my input for both of those because I'm not gonna stay till 2 to 3:30.
Sure.
If that's okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
I mean, I'm really interested, but, and then
Right, that's
maybe y'all won't have to, but anyway, yes, we can have a conversation. We do dual enrollment programs at the high school. We do, on-site programs here. We have a welding lab here. We have a machining lab here. We have an industrial technology lab here. We have worked with some of your companies in the area, Toll Brothers, Boar's Head, to do apprenticeship programs in the industrial maintenance technology arena. We used to have some dual enrollment programs that came and used our machining lab. We do not have that now. That is a very expensive lab with some great equipment, and the bottom line is we can't get interest. We are getting ready to start a couple of new classes there, hoping to be able to,
You can't get enough interest in students
right, for the classes to make. And we were working with the school system to try to encourage, again, bringing students here to participate in those really high-tech programs.
Good.
And then
Make time
COVID
too.
hit, and, that didn't go. We have a welding lab that was initiated by Fluor, who was the company who built the Dominion power plant. We had great attendance in our welding program when they were here, and we had somebody who was standing right there wanting to hire everybody. We have had a big challenge in getting our welding classes to go since then.
Okay.
So, I think the people in Emporia and Greensville County have done a great job of funding a scholarship for students who graduate from the high school to come to our programs. The numbers have not necessarily been going up.
She might not be familiar, but I think every kid graduates.
Every student who graduates is promised at least a year of
Wow.
education.
Okay.
We send letters to parents, we talk to guidance counselors, our career coaches talk to students. So we're a little bit like everybody else. What can we do?
Or do you feel you're getting good cooperation from the local schools?
Yes. Now, we like to build our dual enrollment program in some of our technical, but that was making some great progress, and then COVID hit. So that kind of didn't go this year. But we have a good dual enrollment program at the high school. We're very pleased with
That was
that.
gonna
And
be
you know,
one of my questions. Do the students come to the campus, or is it on?
if it is a technical program that requires one of our labs that's here, they come to the campus. If not, it's done in the high schools. And we have good participation in the dual
What
enrollment.
are your rates
I'm
for
sorry,
that? Like how many students
I
per
don't
year?
know. I didn't
Okay.
come armed with
That's okay.
that information. And so, as a little bit of a caveat to what I've said, some of these students have finished our classes before they graduate from high school, so they go on to a four-year school. So that's one of the big benefits.
So they can graduate from high school with a 2-year
With
associate's.
really mostly what they need
My
for,
daughter
I don't
did.
know, yeah.
My daughter graduated from Southside before high school.
Yeah. So good participation with the high school with that.
Okay.
And I guess I'm thinking more of our technical programs because they're the ones that seem to be hardest for us to
Okay.
fill up, and they're also by far the most expensive ones for us to offer.
I don't think she mentioned, y'all have a lineman program.
We do, it's in Blackstone.
Yeah.
We have a power line worker program, and one of the wonderful things about the Eagle Scholarship is that which is if you graduate from high school, you get a year, but they will also pay up to $2,500 for one of our shorter term workforce programs, which could be welding or power line or HVAC or
So do they graduate then from those programs with a certificate of some sort?
nationally recognized
Yeah.
certificates. Yeah.
And is that in a scholarship program just that they would attend Southside Community
Yes.
College?
Yes.
Okay.
And then in some of those programs, I'm just kind of telling you this is background.
Yeah, no.
It's a career pathway built in. So for instance, if you graduated from the power line worker program and went to work for Dominion Energy, we have a partnership with Dominion Energy where they have an apprenticeship program. You still have to go through an apprenticeship program. When they finish their apprenticeship program, it's equal to like 31 hours of our technical program. So they get that. And then what they have to do to get their associate's degree would be their English and their math and more of the general programs. And we have a number of students from Emporia who are at our program now and who have been through our Power Line Worker program. And they're good jobs.
I got a question I asked not to change this before you leave about that program.
Yeah, okay. I think we have 2 from Emporia in it right now that'll finish the
My
night.
son wants to get in it. He graduated last year,
Okay.
and went to work, but I think because y'all had to cancel a class or something.
We had to delay, well, it was a March class, so it probably
Yeah, correct.
wouldn't have affected him.
So would he still be eligible?
I don't know, I have to go back and read the guidelines on that one.
I'm sorry, I interrupted.
I have to read what they put in the resolution.
So other than Dominion, so you mentioned Fluor was hiring, was that just they were starting or hiring
Well, what
welders
they
to
were-
build Dominion and then
They
that
built
kind of?
2 Dominion plants within 20 miles of each other, maybe closer, so it was,
3.4 miles apart.
Okay. one was in Brunswick County, one was in Greensville County. So they started their plant in Brunswick County, which was the first one, they knew they needed welders. So we worked with them to put together the welding program, and they went straight from that project then to the Greensville County project.
Okay.
So it was kind of a train your own.
So, and does that tend to be how each of these technical programs evolves?
That tends to be how the most successful ones do.
So if an employer wants to come here, but there's a certain niche field that they're looking for, you would happily be working with them to
you know,
develop a new program.
In technical programs, this is the bottom line. If there are good jobs at the end with companies that pay benefits, we can fill the programs. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
And see, Rolls-Royce had a plant
Yes.
in
Did a lot of
Prince George.
CNC, I think you have, her
The
that works
machining.
here, her son,
Yeah,
but
so that's why the machining was so popular.
Yeah.
But that's not there anymore.
they just closed.
So see, the interest, you know, if you want to do a program like that, you're gonna be more inclined to be in something that there are jobs in.
Sure.
Industrial technology is a good program because it's kind of a maintenance, your electrician, welder, I mean, you get a very broad array of training. And that's a good program because everybody needs that. I mean, all the plants need. I'm telling you more than you want to know.
No, this is great. No, this is,
I'm way more
no,
than
this
you
is
want to know.
exactly, this is the kind of thing that we think about when we hear economic development is an issue here. What is it? Sure, quality of life is one of the things that we hear and that a cornerstone of economic development is quality of life. Then, the workforce development is that other part of the equation.
Yeah, these industry and technology classes that they offer a real benefit, because if you look at our contract pool locally, they're retired or dead and passed on.
Mhm. And we've gotten good
Electrician.
support from Toll Brothers. I mean, we've
Yeah.
gotten good support from
But yeah,
the
but
industry.
I know my niece's boyfriend went through the program, he graduated, he's doing heating and air conditioning in the area, so it really benefits your community.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was surprised not to hear from the developer. Some rural communities have a really hard time filling those kind of construction niche jobs, HVAC,
So
electrician.
he's certified, one of them said he is certified to do it all, so he doesn't have to rely on subs.
Yeah.
That must be my
He is,
business,
he is.
yeah. Well, we're just sitting here, so it's just talking. We had, this has been a number of years ago, the construction industry came to us and said, we need more people in construction. We need some training. So we wrote a grant, we got some money, we put in a construction program. This is a long time ago, it was like 2008. But what happened was, they didn't want to pay anymore if you went through the program.
Since you have
And-
a certificate and seal.
Yeah, so we said, you gotta pay more. If you want somebody to have training, you gotta pay more. But better than that, hire them and pay them to go through the program.
Right.
This is the most interesting thing I've heard in a long time. We're working with a company right now that needs a lot of electricians. They are building the expansion of Microsoft in Boynton, which is Mecklenburg.
Okay.
And they need electricians. So here's their deal. They start at $16 an hour with no experience. And they will put you in an apprenticeship type program. So you go to school, some of it's on the job training, some of it's like 2 nights a week in classes, and we're working with them to do the classes. And they take it out of your paycheck every month, the cost of your tuition. And but meanwhile, you get a certain number of raises as they go, after you've been there 90 days and all. And it will take you 4 years to complete it and get your journeyman's card, because that's how long it takes. You can't fast track that. That's how long it takes. And at the end of that 4 years, you're employed with this company. They give you a check back for everything you paid for your education. Now, I think that's hard to beat. And that's a company who really understands training, in
Right.
my opinion.
And retention, staff retention, the good retention plan.
Right. So a lot of it depends on employers.
Right. If someone comes to you, do you share these kinds of examples with employers about ways that they could get,
Yes,
success stories?
yes.
Do you have marketing materials that talk about your workforce programs? Might be good if we can,
Yeah,
I'm sure is it on your website?
Natalie has most of it.
Yeah, she has. And we do have a truck driver training program also that is, there are always truck driving jobs.
Right.
But we're not inundated with it. We're not saying we need to add a class and you have to pass a drug screen and you get randomly drug screened, and the same thing with power line worker. And so, we treat you just like you would be in the industry. Plus it's dangerous stuff.
Right. And is that So there is a community college education here. Are some of your programs in other locations as well?
We work out of this center.
Okay,
Our truck driving program, there is a site here. If we have enough people to have a class who are interested in coming, we run classes here like once or twice a year. The last year, we have not had enough people who signed up to run it. We have welding here. Power line worker, it's in Blackstone, it's one location.
okay. Is that, is the attendance here different than what you see, or even the quality of student that you're seeing come out of the Greensville area? Does that differ from what you're seeing in your other locations?
I'm gonna tell you that when Fluor was hiring welders, that was not a problem. It is our industrial technicians, that's not a problem. It depends on jobs that
Right.
we don't notice any difference with our high school kids, they are, with our dual enrollment kids, we just can't make some of these programs go. And it's concerning to us and concerning to the community, because for one thing, there's a huge investment in the equipment. But I still think I'm not putting we try to educate, and I am not putting the blame on the high schools.
Right.
But high schools for a while kind of got away from technical education. I think the pendulum's swinging back now. So I think going forward, I think it's gonna be more positive. And also the governor is very interested in, we call them fast forward programs.
Heard of that.
Very interested in these programs where you can go for, a certain number of weeks and get training, and then have a pathway after that you can continue on even while you're working in your field. He calls it G3.
Right. And your facility, is there, the facility here, was that built, are you in this building?
Yes.
Yes. And so do you lease space here, or is that?
Well, the county basically gives us space. We pay some electricity,
Yeah.
but,
So
it's
the
a
county
great
has
partnership.
invested,
Absolutely, most invested county we have, I would tell you. I really think Greensville County is the most invested county we have.
it's a good,
It is,
good,
right.
plug for the county.
Because we only have, the only county the only community that does the scholarships for students.
Okay.
So any problems that we have are not because of county and city involvement.
So if you think about the growth and development of Greensville County in the next 10 to 20 years, what do you see? And either from a vision standpoint, challenges, opportunities?
Well, we are not, I don't know about what's on the, we've always been pretty invested here because, for one thing, we think that the fact that the mega site is here is very important, and one day that's gonna hit. And so we think also we certainly don't want to train people and have them go out of the community, but sometimes when you train, you gotta go find a job. So the proximity to, having Rolls-Royce there was so wonderful because the proximity for jobs was there. So we always have to think in terms, whenever you live in a rural area, you know that you're gonna have a certain number of people who are gonna go outside of the community. So we still think it's geographically, it's in a great place. The county and the city are invested in our college. We are very interested in our location here. We have some angst because our enrollment does not go up. But our dual enrollment does well in the high schools. And I think that we were really working hard to offer what we could to the high school students and making some progress in that again for the technical
Mhm.
programs. And I think that will pick back up
Right.
when the world opens back up.
Right.
And that's part of the reason that I'm here is because we are committed to Greensville County. I mean, when I got this, I thought, you know, we have to have representation there. This is where we are. This is part of our array. We operate out of 2 full campuses and 5 centers. This is one of our centers that we operate out of.
So in your campuses, is it more multiple buildings?
Yes.
Yeah.
And see, we service 4,200 square miles. We're the largest geographic service area of any community college, not enrollment, but geographic service area of any community college in the Commonwealth. So a long time ago, our president at the time said, we have to get out of our campuses because it's too far for people to come. So he forged partnerships with communities. This was the first one. Emporia was our first center. And our last president was actually from Emporia.
Is there anything happening in the broader community in the Greensville area that concerns you or excites you? I know you mentioned the mega site.
Well, I think that, you know, I grew up in rural Southside Virginia. And so I understand that things don't just happen overnight. So I think for Greensville County that they have been aggressive in their economic development efforts. I think they are aggressive in their facility efforts. So I guess, you know, I certainly don't mean to say everything is bad because it's not. So what I'm saying is that I think they have been diligent in getting the infrastructure in place to enable them to continue to move forward.
Right. And I think that is very consistent with what we've heard from others as well in terms of having water and sewer extensions that are happening and.
You know, it's a whole ball of wax.
Mhm.
So they do that. They've invested in education. And you know, it's always ups and downs. I mean, we were so lucky to have the 2 Dominion plants here, and that was a big up for us because they hired, you know, 300, 400, 500 people and all that. It's always going to be ups and downs. And I think that you know, we benefit. We have a welding lab, so.
And how, is there any other ways that you are talking about or that you could see the county, like any additional investments in the next 10 to 20 years that you could see could help education in
Well,
Greensville?
you know, the more people that need training to go to work, the better off you are. So, I mean, our enrollment is in many ways in our workforce classes is tied to
To
need.
those jobs,
Right.
those economic development jobs. So it really is, from your perspective, more about bringing the employers here and we can easily fill their needs in terms of the workforce development side of things. But it's that funnel of needing to draw the employer. Does that make sense?
Sure. I mean, again, our programs that flourish are programs that have jobs at the end of them. Good jobs.
Lynn, do you have any questions?
I'm familiar.
I feel like I'm in court,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna ask my attorney. here.
Exactly, I know, it's so strange. I felt really strange being behind that, so
But it is fun, and I mean, in summary, we couldn't ask for better partners than Emporia in Greensville County. And I think we just all need to, you know, we hear a lot of this everywhere we go. We have 10 counties in our service area.
Mhm.
So, you know, we go through this in many of our
Right.
counties. So I think that Greensville is doing a great job and has, again, nobody else has that mega site. And I think that's a huge potential for Greensville and a huge potential for us. I think they have aggressive economic development process.
Just taking notes. Erin, did you have any follow-up questions or anything that triggered you, your thoughts?
I guess what would you see as the main interest that for the dual enrollment? Is it mostly just to supplement the public school education?
Well, I think that the dual enrollment classes that we do in the high schools are your more typical English, history. So what that does is, that gives,
Oh,
that's a great thing for parents. Because they get credit for don't have to pay for the class. So that's a big boom, I think. And that partnership is wonderful. Now, as far as our programs that we have here, available for dual enrollment classes, and what we try to do is to, we assist with some of the cost of that for the schools. And if you are gonna put in a machining lab, it's very expensive. So why not partner? And you know, it works. When it works, it's great.
That makes sense. Is it just simply a dual, I used to be a high school teacher, so I know a little bit about it. Is it defined as like the early college academy?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And then we do, you know, we are available, we do night classes for adults. But there is a lot happening right now for people. It's gonna be a big announcement made fairly soon in Virginia about tuition help for unemployed and underemployed in what they call the G3 programs, which are many of them, all of the technical programs, and then some others too. So it's going to be a great opportunity it's a great time to go back to school. Let me just say that, especially in certain areas. And they are the areas that more people need employees. You know, I wish I could, early childhood is one of them. I'll give you that as an example. In the education arena, early childhood is one.
it's growing or?
That is going to be one of the programs that they're working hard to entice people to either go back to school or start school.
Welcome, thank you for
Hi.
joining us,
I'm
hi.
sorry for my tardiness.
Oh,
Is it?
that's okay. My name's Kelly, I'm with the Berkeley Group, and then, I'm sorry,
I'm Mary Jane Elkins.
Hi.
and she's with the community college,
Yes.
and you
I
are,
am Kim Evans, Superintendent of Greensville County.
Yeah, so
Okay.
see, we're talking about partnerships. And so, well, I'm not gonna take over you. Look, I'm
No.
taking over your job.
no, please, go ahead.
So one of the things that we were talking about the future, and I said, well, we have a good relationship with the school. Unfortunately, COVID has caused us not to be able to move ahead with some of our technical programs, which we think are very, very important. But, you know, if you had a child who went through dual enrollment, you saved money.
Oh, yes.
I mean, you saved money.
I was a single parent and it really
Right. Because it's free, the school pays for it. So if you graduate from the high school with almost an associate's degree or an associate's degree, you can save. I just read, this is interesting, I can't tell you where the student's from, because I didn't read that, but I just read a scholarship application before I came. And the young woman said, I'm not being critical, I won't name the school, I'll just say a 4-year school in Virginia. And she said she went 1 year. She said she came out with $15,200 in debt. And she said she has spent the summer, she said, I had a part-time job, I mowed lawns, I walked and dog sat, and she said, I'm almost through paying off my $15,000, and I need to keep moving with my education, but I can't do that again. So that's huge.
Yeah, right.
And I was just so taken with that statement because I thought, how impressive that she would have the wherewithal and the get up and go to say, I can't leave every year with $15,000 in debt, and I need to get this paid off, and I need to think about a different avenue.
Right. So we've been talking primarily about workforce development and the economic development side of things. And I kind of opened by saying that we had a public workshop. I don't know if you heard about that a few months or a month ago. And the schools and economic development were two very big factors that came out during that workshop.
Surprise,
In every
surprise.
community, no different here in Greensville. And so tonight with the public workshop, we're going to be exploring and asking the community that attends to identify specific strategies and kind of dive a little deeper into those two avenues. But we also want to have these stakeholder interviews to get your perspective on the topic and where the challenges are, what kind of support or strategies we should be looking at from the county perspective in the next 5, 10, 20 years. And anything also as that relates to economic development and physical development. So that's, that I think for this conversation, we have some sample questions of what we're asking generally, but I think for this conversation, we just kind of had an open discussion on anything that you'd like to share with us at this time.
Well, first and foremost, I think facilities is huge. We are a one-division high school, and our high school is very old and outdated. And when you think about the learning has changed throughout the years and what we're expecting kids to know and be able to do, our facilities are not always conducive for that type of experimental learning. I think about our science labs in particular, that are very old and outdated and not conducive to the type of experiments that we could be doing with our students to expose them to different types of learning. One of the things that I do like is that we do have partnerships that we can use, and we need to strengthen some of those partnerships because, as she was just stating, kids are going off to college and they're coming home with a mountain of debt, whereas they can start some of that real world learning and real world experiences in the high school or the public school setting that will help them along the way, along with those dual enrollment courses. But how do we expose them to different careers, different people, so that they can see, well, what is it like to have a day in the life of a youth? What does that really mean? So how do we connect our students with adults that are working so that they could have some real experiences about a chosen career, so that when they go in, that they have more experiences, not I'm just experimenting, trying to find out them, but they already have a clear path that could cut down on some of that debt that they would experience. So that's huge, and we need to have more opportunities for students. Because some of those dual enrollment experiences or opportunities are based on, passing a test or getting a certain score on a test or meeting a certain criteria. So how can we expand those opportunities for all students to be exposed to a more rigorous curriculum and also take advantage of some of the perks of taking those dual enrollment classes as well.
I love what you just said about a day in the life of a newspaper reporter. That is so, we do a program called A Day in the Life of a Power Line Worker. And it is greatly attended and it's been wonderful. And when you just said that, I thought, okay, well, we need to do some more of other things and partner to do that because it's absolutely wonderful information because we bring in somebody who works in the industry and he says, this is what I do.
Right.
And that's called, it's PBL, project-based learning. So you get to learn the curriculum by solving a problem in the community. So you could give this process to a group of kids and they learn their SOLs as they work through this process to develop a long-range plan for the county. But kids
I
are involved
actually,
and engaged.
I did something like that when I worked for a locality as a planner, and we worked with the elementary school students to build a playground, plan their park, basically. Yeah.
And so the school division, we've started with Convocation 2.0 this year. Normally we have Convocation at the beginning of the year. We did a second version of that to try to roll out a different way of thinking about educating our children now and using some more project-based learning opportunities for our students. But even when you think about the spaces that you would need, like maker spaces so that they can go somewhere and create, we think about some of our schools and we just don't have that. Bellfield Elementary School, that is a 5th grade school only, standalone school. And that's where your elementary science test is. And they do not have appropriate science labs. And so the SOLs related to science always start with experiment. So you don't have a space where you can go experiment. So facilities is huge to make sure that our students have the environment that's needed to become the best citizen that they can become.
Right.
So that is crucial.
Does the school have a facilities plan or any kind of study or?
So a feasibility study was conducted in 2016, I believe, and some recommendations came from that, but it never moved forward because, as you know, school divisions can't fund long-range plans. So we've been talking about facilities for what, since I've been here, starting in 2018. And we actually have a joint school board, city council, board of supervisors meeting coming up to talk about not just a 5-year plan for facilities, but a 20, 30-year plan for facilities. And what does that look like down the road? Because those projects can be very costly.
Right.
And so you just can't say, oh, next year we're going to build a new school unless you have $100 million just happen to be, lying around.
Right. Did that feasibility study, was that just a short-term feasibility study in terms of immediate, like life and safety improvements, or was it
when
long?
it was conducted?
Okay.
But it talked about the options were to renovate the high school and build a new 4th, 5th grade building over by the elementary school. But it also included what upkeep, maintenance for the buildings in the meantime.
Okay. So we might need a copy of that, sounds
Ms.
like, and
Parson
then
has,
we'll kind of follow along with what happens with these joint work sessions so that the any capital improvements that the county makes should be consistent with their comprehensive plan. And so that's why we want to make sure that if we have heard clearly that there is a need to improve the schools, and so how do we make sure that that translates into the comprehensive plan so that the comprehensive plan supports the capital facilities program that's
We're
needed?
getting ready to start our budget process in FY '22, so typically, we've always had a capital improvements plan in the comp plan, so as we work in school and city, work with school board on that long-term, plan, we'll have that incorporated,
Right,
and it should, do you know the timeline on that plan, Dr. Evans?
Well, every December, the first week in December, we have to give them like 5-year
Right.
projects. And we've always kind of included the school, but it doesn't come to pass. So we're looking at those types of things. So with the city and the county having to fund it, then it's important that, they both get the information so that we can come to some agreement of what is gonna happen first, second, third.
By the end of the comp plan process, we'll be finished with next budget year, and we'll have the 5-year plan. So hopefully, y'all will have something accomplished on beyond 5 years that we can include.
Yeah, and that's where some of the sticky wicky comes in, because school divisions can't fund. So we can have a plan for you on paper.
right.
Now, if it jumps off the paper and comes to life, now that is dependent upon the funding from the municipality.
Right. What other kinds of issues? So we heard facilities, primarily the high school, but then also the 5th grade school, there's needs.
Yes, and that's really not a very good situation with having a standalone school of 1 grade. Because of accreditation purposes, that school now is, if you have a good class that comes through, that's, a very bright class, you're fine. But if not, you have just the opposite, or you have some kids who need a little bit more assistance, your accreditation for that one school rests solely on those kids. So at the other schools, there are other grade levels to help offset that.
Spread it.
Exactly, and you don't have that. So we have been looking at how to mitigate that situation. And if you do a 4th and 5th grade building, you will still have the same type of situation, just in reverse, because now 3rd grade test, so they've changed some tests around, but you want to try to mitigate one school having just 1 grade level dependent on their entire accreditation status. So we've talked about what could that look like. Could you, if you even build a new building over behind GES, does it just become GES and it's pre-K through 5th grade? Instead of having 2 separate, a GES and a Bellfield, and then the middle school and the high school. So those are the types of things that you have to take into consideration as you think long-term what's best for the system. We also are working on like an alternative setting for our students. All of our students don't thrive well in a traditional classroom setting or traditional school setting. So how do we meet the needs of those students while still having high academic standards as well? So we are looking at the church beside the elementary school to purchase it and come up with a catchy name. It will not be alternative school, it'll be something else. The Eagle Zone, it'll be something else, but it will not be alternative school, where we can engage those students in a setting that is best for them and help redirect behaviors and teach those redirection skills so that we can cope better with behavior issues. We're also, the high school, we're engaging in an RFP for a facility study of the high school. And how do we need to renovate, or do we need to rebuild? What should that look like?
Okay.
So we have someone coming in because the feasibility study that was done in 2016 is now outdated. And so we started with the high school because Belleville is a little bit different. Belleville definitely need to be done. I just envision Belleville being a new building.
Is that the 5th grade?
That's the 5th grade building, yes.
So that building needs to be reconstructed
Repurposed.
or, okay.
And if y'all, if you move Bellfield to this campus, that would solve some of your transportation issues, and would probably be a savings on the transportation side too. I think that's something y'all can send us to in the kind of plan. Y'all had luck with the church.
We've contacted Mr. Irvine, and we haven't heard anything for a while, so Alicia's been contacting him. So, and I know, but I don't think anybody's doing a lot of traveling with COVID. He would travel a lot out of the state and out of the country. And so we don't know if he's traveling and just haven't been able to be back.
Trying to reach out.
Will you thank you?
My wheels are turning here. You've given us a lot to think about. So potentially two school renovations or replacements in the next 20 years, potentially. I mean, or sooner, it sounds like.
I guess I have a question beyond the school facilities. Like what other sort of community issues sort of manifest themselves in the school, like lack of affordable housing or lack of recreational opportunities outside of the school, or like food access, stuff like that impacts the school?
So, something you said just always gets my wheels going. Investment in early childhood is crucial. Having access to literacy programs prior to entering school, and that either Head Start or pre-K prior to that is important. What we are finding is that we are having our reading levels are behind when they enter, and we're continuing to play catch up throughout the tenure of schooling. So that's important. One of the things that we had to contend with, and we're going to see more of it now due to COVID, is just trauma. And we recognize that and try to service students and families as needed. We're a small school division, which means you don't have a lot of people, you have a lot of work. And sometimes you have one person who's wearing several different hats. And that can be challenging, trying to make sure you're meeting all of the needs of everybody. And I'll give one example of one that we fixed this year is our assistant superintendent previously was responsible for instruction and HR. Impossible for one person to do both of those things. Impossible. And so we had put that split in the budget for several years. It was never funded. And so when the former assistant superintendent left, I said, this is an opportunity to make this happen. So we had to shift some things around in order to split that, because you're not going to improve instruction with someone who cannot devote 100% of their time to improving instruction. And so our structure has been changing. Literacy, as I stated, has been an issue for us. And we did not have a person who was responsible for literacy pre-K-12. So how can you improve in that area without the people to lead the charge there? So the municipalities were very kind to us this year, and we were able to hire someone that had that responsibility, so we can bring some closure to what do we need to do and who's going to be responsible for overseeing and monitoring these things. You can put things in place. But if there's no monitoring, if there's no oversight, then sometimes it doesn't move. We have been feeding kids since March with COVID. And yes, that is another huge issue I see with our students. And as we know, health and diet impacts education. And I know we have a farmer's market here, but when you think about the stores and the places where people can go and eat and get really healthy meals, we're limited here. And so that plays a part in our children's academics. And then recreational opportunities. What is there for them to do outside of school? Not everyone plays sports. Our band is a huge program, but not everyone is in it. So what is there for our kids to do when they leave school? And unfortunately, too many of us are spending our time in Facebook and Instagram, TikTok, and those types of places that are not always positive places. And then those issues find their way in the school because somebody talked about my shoes or somebody said this about me. So now the only time I see them is in school, so now we're gonna settle in school. So those, having something for kids to do, I think is
You know, one of the things that I hope will take place after we get through COVID, because I work around a lot of people who have children. And I think they're really finding out how valuable teachers are. You know?
Yeah.
And, you know, I hope that there will be some type of movement, grassroots movement, by everybody who's had to deal with this on the importance of teachers, and they don't get paid enough. And I feel the very same way about our police and, you know, I just hope that that's something, especially in our smaller communities. I know it's just so hard for people. I see so many people I work with struggling to make sure their kids have what they have and they get their jobs done, and it's not easy. So I hope that this will, in the long run, help our public schools.
I pray so. At the end of the day, teachers,
That's what I was wondering.
Tap it.
are you all recording?
I didn't want it
It's
to be
live
recorded,
stream.
but
Oh,
Yeah, it's
Live
still live, yeah.
when?
Yeah. No, everything we do over here is live stream.
you're safe so far.
We can move on.
Well, I think it's important for everyone to understand that, you know, this is a stressful time for everyone. And teachers are working, you know, teaching virtually their students while also trying to teach their own kids, right? And parents are doing the same thing. And so it's really about how do we best work together to meet everyone's needs during this difficult time. And I had a conversation with my leadership team just yesterday, because what happens when we're stressed and when things are out of our control, we normally lash out at the people who are closest to us, when this is really the time when we need to be leaning
Pull together.
and on each other and pulling together to make it through a difficult time. And our teachers, you know, everyone is experiencing, social, emotional, health issues, because we worry about our kids constantly. I worry about my teachers. How are you doing? And those around me, how are you doing? Just to manage all of this, and it is a lot. And in Greensville, we're still under the mandates of a memorandum of understanding with the state. And none of that has eased up. So we are still having to deal with all of those things while trying to make sure we're educating our children and our own children at the same time. So I appreciate it, and I'm sure the teachers here in Greensville will appreciate your comments. And anytime we can just say to them, thank you for what you're doing, what do you need, so that we can get through this. And it's such a learning curve because we've never had to do this before. And so as you go through situations and things happen and you're trying to lead through it, you can always look back and say, I should have done this, or I should have done that. And then you know, next time, do this. But when the next time comes, it's gonna be, I should have done this, I should have done that. So we're continuing to grow and manage and lead through this very difficult time. And I think for us, we did not have a one-to-one initiative. So every student in the division did not have a device. We had internet issues where some parts of the county, even with the hotspot, they cannot access the internet. So that's something that the county really needs to look at, is how do we have affordable internet access for everyone in all parts of the county? Because we have teachers who, even though they have the option to work from home, we have teachers who are having to come into the county where there is no internet access. And then we have students who live in parts of the county. And so we have to do paper packets for them, or they go somewhere so that they can get one. So that's something that really needs to be worked out.
And that is something that we do for our students here. You can come in and use our computer lab or our computers. So we do try to make that, or we do make that available every day.
The availability of broadband is one of our main goals. Unfortunately, the main fiber won't be wrapped up until after the first of the year, so we're not able to branch off there. Just as we were sitting there, I sent you an email, we did get that grant. I just got the award letter a few minutes ago. So I sent you a copy of it.
Thank you.
But
That's awesome.
if COVID had come along next year this time, we'd be a whole lot further along with the extension of broadband service. But until we get the main fiber finished, we can't build off of it. And Mecklenburg's doing a great job. They're applying for middle mile and last mile funds. So once it is hot, we can take off with it. Of course, it's not going to happen overnight, but we're a whole lot closer. And you will see in the next year and a half, you will see a whole lot more coverage. They've also worked in agreement with Dominion Power to where Mecklenburg can go in Dominion territory to become a service provider. That's what we were worried about. We weren't worried about the Mecklenburg area because they're going to eventually get it to everybody's stores. We were worried about Dominion because we have Dominion out of Petersburg, Dominion out of South Hill, and Dominion out of North Rapids in Grayson County. But they have worked on an agreement with Dominion, so now they're going to be able to serve the whole county. So the next year or two, you can really see our broadband availability skyrocket.
That's great.
In terms of early childhood education, is that something that is being taught at the community college right now?
We have like a career studies certificate, I think, in early childhood education.
Okay.
And we have, one of the things we have that I just made myself a note to write to everybody about is, this is small, but I think it's important. We have some scholarship funds for students for teachers for recertification,
Okay.
and we'll pay half
Okay.
the cost of a class.
Okay.
And again, I just wrote myself a note to send that around to everybody and make sure that everybody knows that.
Right.
Because, go back to those teachers. Not only are they educating their own children, their school children, but they have to keep up their credentials at the same time. And so my hat's off to you and your team. And we do the same thing with many of our faculty. I'm still kind of I still have files in my office because I like project things, you know? And that we are always saying, be ready to pivot, to go home and not be able to walk back in your office. What do you need? I said, I need a dump truck in my office to get me all my projects. So, but that's, the stress of that is huge. Especially for people who are responsible for somebody's education.
And I feel sorry for the decisions y'all have to make too, because it's like me on the planning commission. I'm the bad guy no matter what decision I make.
Right.
And this makes it harder.
It's very challenging, but I think the board has done an excellent job of looking at all the variables to make decisions and listening to the voices that are presented to them as well. And yeah, it's very challenging because at the end of the day, that doctor in front of my name does not have anything to do with being a medical doctor. Not at all. And so another concern is fluctuating enrollment in our school division. And also being able to recruit, attract, and retain highly qualified teachers as well. So how do we have positions that's open? You know, how do we attract people to want to come to the area and then get them to stay?
That ties in to everything we discussed at the session before this one. So.
Yeah. So, you know, like what's here for them to want to stay here.
That quality of life,
Exactly.
again, that recreation opportunities, is that
Yes.
what you're speaking to? Are there specific recreation opportunities that you have heard from your teachers or students that they would really wish that they had?
Movie theaters, opportunities to like skate, bowl, those types of activities.
I think the team sports we have covered here.
Yes.
With Top Hand, the EGRA, CYC and
Right.
stuff. It's stuff we used to have when I was a kid. I mean, really. I wasn't able to hit bowling alley, but I was able to hit theaters, and I remember the drive-in theater. None of that's here anymore. It's just all team sports.
And most people, they would have to drive.
Yeah, Running Rapids, Petersburg, Richmond, Colonial
To go
Heights.
somewhere.
So anything else? We're about at 12:15, which I think was our time to wrap up. Anything else? We're here all day, so if there's anything else that you want to bring up or that would help the education system, economic development, to attract teachers, anything like that.
I think some of it could be little things, like if you're here, you know, I'm just trying to think like with housing, you know, how could they have some type of discount or something with housing or insurance or some special with banking accounts and those types of things, just some little things that will help because teachers don't make a lot of money. And so what kind of savings or incentives could be offered to make things a little bit more attractive as well?
Can I ask a question? Have you all, have you noticed Bon Secours is your health,
Yeah,
your
I just got a
hospital?
bad letter yesterday.
You got that too.
Okay, I don't know what you're talking.
Our insurance here in the county could not reach an agreement with Bond Secures, and we're not covered at Emporia,
Southside region.
in Petersburg, and Franklin. But we can use South Hill, we're covered, so I don't understand. And this, we've sent them invitations to all this too. They've got 2 or 3 invitations. I have not heard a peep out of
I
anybody.
think that their person who's, I don't know what they call the highest level of person here is maybe the chamber speaker next.
Okay.
Because I was looking at that, because was interested because I haven't met the people from Bon Secours. But, you know, in communities like ours, it's education, healthcare, and they're huge in our communities. When a number of years ago, our service area services 4 hospitals. And you don't think about things like this a lot, but I think this is big in rural communities. All 4 were independent hospitals. We got so much support from our hospitals. None of our 4 are independent hospitals anymore.
And I don't think we have, OBGYN, none of that here anymore, those type services and this minimal
And they're
services they
big
offer.
players in communities. Big players in communities. They're big players in education. They're big players in what goes on. So, and I'm not saying that none of them are players now. I'm not in any way saying that. I'm just saying that's been a change for rural communities.
It's all corporate,
So,
everything's corporate now.
and corporate's usually not in your location.
That's true.
Do you have healthcare, like nursing
Yes,
programs,
big,
things like that?
yes, yes. And that's our nursing program is a big program. And we got it that way because of the support of the community-owned hospitals.
Y'all have an excellent staff teaching.
But it's gonna be interesting to see when we get out of this, will there be as much interest in healthcare professions? Well, I mean, you know, it's gonna all be interesting to watch how
What happens
this
next.
changes, how things evolve. Yes, yes.
Have you all heard anything from the principals before that?
I don't deal with that in, I just got the letter. I didn't see it the last night when I got home because I was tied up
Well-
different meetings yesterday. And, I was reading it last night when I got home and I called Alice. She said, yeah, that's great. We don't take our insurance anymore. And that's a big,
That's huge.
that's a big
huge.
issue. I
That's
mean,
huge.
if,
That is
If I gotta
big.
travel,
yeah, if I
but
got,
when you think about it, if I have to call the emergency crew.
Yeah.
To take me all the way somewhere else, then what that bill was
yeah,
gonna.
oh, yeah.
Or what that's gonna do to people who provide that service.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
That's okay. It's your time, so your time to kind of share with us. So I think we've covered a lot. Might be nice if we could get your contact information in case there's
I've
anything.
got all her stuff. I
Okay,
can send it to you.
yeah, we got the sign in
And
there
you all
too.
need.
Tonight's another public input session for the citizens.
Okay,
Today's stakeholder group, so you're welcome to come, but,
okay.
We're gonna be exploring the strategies more.
And will you have notes from that, minutes from that, or something be developed from that?
Yes,
Because that would be interested in seeing that.
yes, we have a website for the project. I think it's on
It's on our
that
website.
handout.
Okay,
And,
okay.
The other thing I want to mention before you all go is that we do have this community survey out and open right now. Please, there's a link on here and we can get you a flyer as well. Maybe we'll send the flyer out to
We've
everybody
got-
that signed
I
up.
think we've sent it
I think
to
you
you.
said it.
And
Typically, in the past, we've sent it home in the kids' school packets to the parents, but it's on at school, so. But I'll be glad to give you plenty of copies, just
Okay.
thank
distribute them.
you for your time.
It's been a bonus for me to be here and get to talk to Dr. Evans.
We'll have the summary of like major takeaways from these stakeholder interviews, and then also we will summarize the notes from tonight as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank y'all for
Oh,
coming.
no
Thank you.
worries, thank you. Again, I apologize. for-
No, that's okay.